of his deadly surprise. A human sniper waited for death or weapon of victory.
In a forest where every tree hid a predator, a human sniper waited for death or victory, whichever came first. He had ended countless threats, but he had never imagined the deadliest one would walk on two legs. Part 2. Animation Prompt. Alien Huntress emerging from thick mist, tall, elegant physique, bioluminescent markings, silver eyes, tribal armor fused with advanced tech, moonlight casting a blue halo behind her. Across that cursed battlefield, an alien huntress stalked the soil she had sworn to protect. She hunted humans, yet the moment she sensed him, something unfamiliar stirred, something more than instinct. Part 3. Animation Prompt. Split-screen moment of human sniper aiming from the shadows and alien huntress poised with an energy bow, jungle glowing under alien moon, tension crackling like electricity. When their paths collided in an ambush gone wrong, survival forced them together. Enemies by war, but bound by something deeper, something neither could name. And by the end, neither would want to. Chapter 1. 1,000 words, narration only. The forest of Corral. 9 breathed like a living beast, exhaling the metallic scent of fog and ash. The human sniper moved through its twisted undergrowth with deliberate precision, his steps carefully placed to avoid the whisper-thin vines that snapped like wires and released toxic spores. He was a veteran of these shadows, a ghost in the ruins of an alien world still scarred by battles no one remembered starting. Target after target had fallen beneath his scope, yet none of them haunted him as much as the silence that followed each mission, the silence of a war that never seemed to end. Tonight, the air pulsed with unease. His instincts warned him long before the sensors caught the faint distortion in the distance. Something powerful moved through the mist, graceful and predatory. He slowed his breath, pressed his body against the warm bark of a luminescent tree, and raised his rifle. He tracked the faint shimmer of movement as if it were a heartbeat echoing through the forest floor. It wasn't the enemy patrol he expected. It was something far more dangerous. The alien huntress moved across the terrain like wind given form, silent, fluid, deadly. Bioluminescent patterns glowed faintly across her skin, shifting in response to the forest's presence. Her people had evolved here long before humans landed. She belonged to this land in ways no outsider could. She carried a bow of crystallized energy, drawn from the very core of the planet, and her senses were sharper than any soldier's tools. Her role was sacred. Protect the last remnants of her species from human incursion, no matter the cost. He had heard whispers of her, the shadow huntress, the ghost who drifted through the fog and left only bodies behind. Many humans dismissed the stories as myth. He had learned long ago that myths often walked on 2 feet, especially on alien worlds. Tonight, she was hunting, and she was hunting him. He tracked her movement, waiting for the perfect angle, the perfect breath, the perfect heartbeat. His trigger finger barely moved, yet it felt as though time itself stretched thin. But something unexpected happened. She stopped, tilting her head as though listening to something distant. The forest fell still around her, as if holding its breath. Then the ground trembled, not by her doing, not by his. Something else had entered the battlefield. The sniper recognized the sound before he saw the shapes forming through the fog. Mechanized warbeasts built by a rogue alien faction, programmed to kill anything breathing. They operated without allegiance, without mercy, and without distinction between human and native. They were metal monstrosities born of a failed weapon program, now stalking the forests like feral wolves. 3 of them broke through the mist, their metallic limbs tearing through vines, their glowing maws dripping sparks. They zeroed in on movement, hers. The sniper cursed under his breath. This wasn't a fight she could win alone. No matter how lethal, no matter how legendary, no flesh could outrun steel built for slaughter. He made his choice before thinking. His rifle fired with a sound that barely disturbed the leaves, a single shot cutting through fog and striking one of the beasts in the joint with pinpoint precision. The machine stumbled, its limbs twitching. The other two turned sharply toward him, their sensors locking onto his heat signature. The Huntress spun toward the sound of his shot. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but in recognition that he had just saved her life. She poised her bow, ready to fire at him if he dared aim again. But her instincts shifted as another machine lunged. Instead of releasing her arrow toward him, she turned it upon the beast and unleashed a radiant bolt that split its armor in half. For a moment, they fought side by side, though neither acknowledged it. He took down the second beast with controlled bursts aimed at its joints, each shot deliberate and timed between its movements. She tore through the third with fluid strikes, her blade reflecting the pale glow of her bioluminescent markings. When the final machine fell, the forest gasped in relief. Now, the mist cleared enough for each to see the other fully. The sniper felt the weight of her gaze as she watched him with a mixture of suspicion and something else, something curious and intense. He saw strength in her stance, the way her muscles coiled with discipline, yet he also saw something softer in the way her markings dimmed, like embers cooling after a firestorm. She was beautiful in a fierce, untamed way, like the forest itself given shape. She, in turn, saw a human who did not tremble, who did not flee, who did not raise his rifle again, even when she aimed her weapon toward him. His calm composure puzzled her. Humans were known to be unpredictable, impulsive, and aggressive. Yet he had chosen to save her, risking his life against machines he could have avoided. A strange shift rippled between them, an unspoken acknowledgement that the world had changed in the span of a single heartbeat. But then the distant echoes of approaching soldiers shattered the moment. Both sides were converging on the area. If either stayed, they would be discovered. Without a word, without a gesture, both retreated into opposite sides of the mist, swallowed once more by the shadows of the forest. Yet neither forgot the other. For the first time in their lives, they questioned if their enemy was truly their enemy at all. The forest mist had barely swallowed the sniper before he felt the weight of what had just happened. In the rhythm of war, every decision had a cost, and saving the alien Huntress might have just rewritten the path he was meant to walk. As he slipped through the undergrowth, he replayed that brief moment, the glimmer of her bioluminescent markings, the fierce grace of her movements, the way she had hesitated before aiming at him. Hesitation was rare on battlefields. It meant something had shifted, even if he did not understand it yet. He moved with trained silence, weaving through the glowing trunks, but his mind was far more turbulent than his footsteps. He had seen countless enemies in his career, but none had filled his thoughts after the mission was over. She lingered like an echo, sharp, strange, impossible to ignore. It unsettled him, and yet he felt drawn to the thought of her, as if the forest had carved her memory into his mind. Elsewhere in the forest, the Huntress traveled with a similar disturbance in her chest. The luminescent veins across her skin pulsed at an irregular rhythm, a biological reaction her people associated with fear, shock, or profound disruption. She knew it was not fear. She had met fear 100 times and conquered it. This was something far more confusing, a sensation she had no name for. The human had risked himself to save her, an act that defied logic. Her people had always described humans as reckless invaders, incapable of restraint or loyalty. Yet the sniper had shown discipline, precision, and restraint even when her weapon had been pointed at him. She moved swiftly to her tribe's hidden encampment deep within the luminescent plains. Ancient structures carved from living trees rose in elegant arcs, each one humming softly with the energy that connected her people to the land. As she approached, elders observed her with quiet suspicion. Her markings were dimmer than usual, and they sensed the shift in her aura. When she reported the destruction of the rogue machines, she omitted the humans' involvement. She spoke only of the threat, the battle, and the victory, but a faint unease crossed her features. The elders noticed, though they did not speak of it. She claimed she needed solitude to restore balance, and they allowed her to wander to the sacred cliffs overlooking the forest. There, she stared into the swirling mists below, where shadows of beasts and memories moved alike. She told herself that what happened was an anomaly, a moment of survival, a temporary necessity. And yet the image of him persisted, his steady aim, his calm posture, his refusal to fire once the machines fell. Something about that restraint had shifted her perception of humans. It weakened a wall she had built her entire life. The sniper reached the human forward base under the cloak of night, reporting his encounter with the rogue machines in exact detail. But he, too, left out the part of the Huntress. His omission was instinctive, protective, even though he did not fully understand why. His commander acknowledged the threat, planned recon sweeps, and dismissed him with orders to rest. Instead of sleeping, he disassembled and cleaned his rifle methodically, each movement steady but distracted. His mind drifted to the forest clearing, to the alien's silver eyes watching him through the mist. The next day, he returned to the forest under the cover of a scouting patrol, claiming he needed to confirm the machine wreckage. He moved ahead of the team, slipping away unnoticed. His feet carried him without conscious decision toward the clearing where they had fought. The fog lay thick once more, swirling with the glow of spores that drifted like fireflies. The footprints of beasts and the wreckage of metal still scarred the ground, but everything else had returned to its haunting calm. He wasn't sure why he came. Perhaps to reassure himself it had all been real. Perhaps something deeper. The Huntress had the same thought. She returned to the clearing at nearly the same hour, driven by the same inexplicable pull. She told herself she was ensuring the rogue beasts had not been repaired or scavenged. Yet in her heart, she sensed a different truth. She wanted to see if he would return, even though she knew the foolishness of such desire. She approached silently, expecting emptiness. Instead, she sensed a disturbance in the air, a presence that did not belong to nature. Her pulse quickened. She moved with predatory focus, slipping through the mist until she saw him standing at the center of the ruined clearing, examining the remnants of metal. He had not sensed her yet, though his posture remained sharp. Before she revealed herself, she watched him. His movements were precise, efficient, but something about him seemed weighed down, as if he carried more than just the burden of war. He seemed almost human, fragile yet unbroken, determined yet weary. She had hunted humans for years, but she had never seen one this closely without preparing to strike. Without the barrier of hostility, she found herself observing not a target, but a being shaped by conflict in ways that echoed her own life. She stepped forward at last, and the ground beneath her foot shifted subtly. The sniper turned immediately, sensing the sound even before it fully formed. His rifle rose halfway, but he stopped when he recognized her shape through the haze. She, too, froze, though not out of fear. The mist wrapped around them like a veil, the silence between them heavy yet strangely unthreatening. Neither moved for several long moments. Slowly, she lowered her bow. He did the same with his rifle. They studied each other, not as enemies, but as two beings who had survived something together, who had seen the other at their most vulnerable. A quiet understanding bridged the space between them, delicate and dangerous. For the first time in her life, she saw the human as more than a trespasser. For the first time, he saw an alien as more than a target. The forest reacted to their unspoken truce. Its luminescent flora brightened softly, as if recognizing a rare harmony. The mist lifted just enough to reveal more of the other's features. The sniper noticed the subtle glow etched across her skin, each pattern reflecting her mood. The Huntress noticed the scars along his arms, markers of a man who had faced countless battles and survived sheerly through will. They stood in silence, but the silence spoke volumes. It was not a peace treaty, nor was it an alliance. It was a moment, fragile, impossible, quietly transformative. But the world would not allow such a moment to last. A sudden flare of energy pulsed through the trees, followed by the crackle of weapon fire. Human soldiers were sweeping the forest, far closer than expected. The Huntress reacted instantly, her markings brightening in alarm. She knew her presence here meant danger, not just for herself, but for him as well. Humans would assume he was negotiating with the enemy. Her tribe would assume she had betrayed them. Without thinking, he motioned for her to retreat. She stepped back into the mist, but not without one last look, one that lingered longer than safety allowed. Then she vanished into the fog, leaving him alone as the patrol broke into the clearing. He pretended to be studying wreckage, but his heartbeat echoed with thoughts of her presence, her silence, her trust. Both returned to their factions that day, changed by something neither could describe, yet neither could deny. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The storm that began in the clearing did not remain there. It spread silently through the forest, then across the war front, carried by instincts neither human nor alien could name. Something had shifted between the sniper and the huntress, something dangerous not because it was wrong, but because it was forbidden. Their worlds were built on centuries of division, layered with fear, hatred, and losses too deep to count. A bond between enemies was not just impossible. It was a threat to the structure of the war itself. Yet days later, when the moon burned pale blue through the canopy and the forest hummed with quiet tension, the huntress found herself wandering the same mist-covered path that had led her to him before. She told herself she was tracking the rogue machines again, though she knew they had been destroyed. She told herself she was patrolling her borders, though her steps followed a very specific direction. The luminescent trails across her skin pulsed brighter with each heartbeat, betraying emotions she struggled to suppress. The sniper was no different. He requested solo reconnaissance duties, claiming to study enemy patterns. His commanders assumed he sought more hunting grounds. He had always been solitary, relying on silence over squads. But the path he chose was not strategic. It was instinctive. It was a pull deeper than logic, drawing him toward a place that both terrified and fascinated him. Neither expected to see the other. Both hoped they would. And on a night when the fog glowed softly and the wind carried the scent of distant lightning, they met again, this time not by accident, and not in the aftermath of danger, but in a moment suspended between two worlds. The sniper entered the clearing first, moving like a shadow through the undergrowth. He paused at the memory of their last meeting, the imprint of her presence still alive in the soil. When the quiet whisper of steps approached from the opposite side, he didn't reach for his rifle. He simply waited. The huntress emerged from the mist in slow, measured movements. Her bioluminescent markings shimmered with a blend of caution and something he had come to recognize even without words. Uncertainty, curiosity, and a strange softness that seemed to bloom only around him. For several long breaths, they stood facing each other, neither attacking, neither retreating. The world around them shifted. The forest stilled, the fog parted, and the moonlight carved their silhouettes in silver. She stepped closer first. This time, he didn't move away. Their presence filled the space between them, like an unspoken confession. They didn't need dialogue. Every breath, every shift in stance, every flicker of light across her skin spoke for them. They were two people who had survived long enough to realize that survival meant nothing without something that made life worth protecting. But the forest had always been a witness to war, and it warned them before their senses caught up. A sudden tremor shook the earth beneath their feet. The sniper snapped his gaze toward the northern ridge. The huntress felt it too, a surge of energy that did not belong to either of their factions. The rogue machines were back, swarming toward the valley in numbers far greater than before. Something, or someone, had reactivated them. They were heading toward both camps. It was no longer a threat to just one side of the war. This was annihilation. Without words, without hesitation, the sniper and the huntress moved in sync, their bodies aligned as if shaped for battle together. He scaled the ridge with practiced agility, while she leapt across glowing roots and twisted branches with deadly grace. When they reached the crest, the sight below struck them both with cold clarity. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of mechanized beasts roamed through the valley, their metal frames glowing with unstable energy. The machines had adapted, grown more aggressive, more numerous. They were marching toward the human base from one direction and the alien settlement from the other, a twin-pronged assault designed to wipe out everything living in their path. This wasn't war. This was extermination. The sniper positioned his rifle, calculating angles and trajectories. The Huntress drew her blade and energy bow, her markings blazing with the intensity of a warrior who knew her entire species was at stake. Their separate goals aligned into one: stop the machines, no matter what. The forest wind brushed their shoulders like a vow. Together, they launched their attack. He targeted weak points in the machine's armor, each shot precise enough to disable entire limbs. She darted through the melee with lethal fluidity, her movements a storm of light and steel. They fought as if they had trained together for years, anticipating each other's needs, covering blind spots, creating openings. The machines retaliated fiercely, adapting faster than expected. Explosive bolts tore through trees, showering the air with burning embers. Mechanical claws slashed through the soil with devastating force. The ground shook beneath the chaos. At one point, a machine lunged toward the sniper from behind. The Huntress moved with impossible speed, slicing through its core before it reached him. Sparks rained down as she stood between him and death, her markings burning bright with adrenaline. Moments later, he intercepted a blast aimed directly at her, shattering its emitter with a well-timed shot. The explosion lit the sky, reflecting off her silver eyes as she turned toward him. In that shared look, held in the middle of a battlefield, they understood a truth neither could deny anymore. They were no longer enemies. They were partners. A sniper and a huntress fighting not for their factions, but for each other. But the machines were endless. For every beast destroyed, two more emerged from the treeline. Their energy cores pulsed with a sickening rhythm, signaling a coordinated final strike. Realizing they could not win by force alone, the Huntress led him toward the central ravine, where the machine's command unit glowed beneath layers of armor and pulsating wires. It was the heart of the swarm. Destroy it, and the army would fall. He understood instantly. They made a wordless plan. He would take the high ground, lining up the most difficult shot of his life. She would draw the machine's fire, weaving through death itself. She ran into the heart of danger with fearless resolve, calling the machines toward her. He climbed the ridge, each second burning away the distance he needed. When he reached the vantage point, he steadied his breath, ignoring the chaos below, focusing only on her and the core she fought to expose. She leapt, struck, ducked, spun, buying him fractions of a second. The machine's cannons aimed at her. He exhaled, fired. The bullet cut through fog, fire, and metal, piercing the command unit's heart with perfect accuracy. The explosion shattered the valley, sending a shockwave that toppled every machine at once. Silence fell. She collapsed to her knees, exhausted. He rushed down to her, ignoring the burning wreckage and falling debris. When he reached her, she looked up at him with eyes glowing not from battle, but from something deeper, something that had grown between them beyond fear, beyond war. They were alive, because of each other, but survival came with consequences. Their factions would soon learn of their cooperation. The war would not accept what had been born tonight. The world would try to pull them apart in every way possible. And so, in the aftermath of destruction and in the quiet glow of the ruined valley, they made an unspoken choice. They would not return to separate sides. They would not let war decide their fate. They would step into a future shaped by their own bond, whatever it cost. Together, they disappeared into the mists of Corral. 9, no longer sniper or huntress, but something new, something that might one day teach two galaxies that even enemies could find love in the ashes of war. And that love was worth fighting for more than anything else.